How many? Just 4 starters?
Makes it hard to just celebrate all wins. Emmanuel Moseley, Kyle Shanahan said they're worried about an ACL. Doctors Haberman and Middlekoff, I think, and doctors everybody else watching could have guessed that. Nick Bosa, tight groin. Jimmie Ward, who just returned on Sunday, broken hand. Robbie Gould, most likely a knee contusion, which was also my guess. If you watch the clip, he just bangs his knee on the ground very hard. But, those first, they've been playing without Jimmie Ward. Now they've been waiting for Jimmie Ward. But that Bosa one, we probably start with that. That's pretty bad.
Well, really quick on Jimmie Ward, I don't know his exact snap count. I would guess under 8. If you told me it was 4 or 5, I'd believe you. Like, that's pretty crazy. Comes back, pretty devastating hamstring injury, immediately breaks his hand. Like, that sucks. But at least that's like a finite, it's not a torn labrum or torn knee. Like, that's
right. You could
argue
cast on it.
Yeah, in 2 weeks he could come back with it. The Bosa thing's pretty scary, given that I don't make much if a guy stays on the sideline in his pads, right? Because they come out of halftime and everyone's like, where's Nick Bosa? And then everyone starts tweeting. He's come out of the locker room, but he's working with the trainer on the sideline. Then Washburn, Evan, that is, to me, my favorite sideline guy, immaculate hair. You go down to him on the sideline and he's like, well, it's tight. Then they kind of immediately ruled him out. It just happened to his brother. And his brother's injury was basically Nick's injury at Ohio State. So this is something that he's had before. And if you remember, that knocked him out for the season. Now, technically, I think he could have came back, right? In December. He just chose to train for the pros. It's hard because I'm trying to judge his body language, and then you realize his body language doesn't really change. He's not a big up or down guy, right?
Yeah, the thing that I judged was the reports from some of the beat writers who were there that they were trying to stretch him out, that they were stretching out in the second half, like on the sideline with Nick, which makes you think that, if I'm being hopeful, I would say the fact that they're stretching him out maybe means that they don't think it's a tear, that it's not something that would need surgery. But
Joey came out and Joey was on the sideline the whole time.
I know. I'm just, that the fact that they called it tight, the fact that he's had groin issues before, you would hope that he has a good feel for it, right? Like, yeah, guys, I think I might be able to go. Maybe if it's not the Panthers, we'll find out. If it's not the Panthers, is that a game that he could play in? But it's the Panthers. You've got a lead. It's easy to shut him down. I don't know. The fact that they're calling it a tight groin, I don't know. Maybe it's foolish. Leaves me a little bit hopeful for the fact that it's not too severe. But even if it's not, I think there's the real possibility that he misses the next game.
Well, I had a buddy text me from the Kansas City Chiefs and said, "What's up with Nick?" I'm like, "Well, they just said groin," and he's like, "Well, we play him 2 weeks. Hopefully, he misses a couple." Like, that's the first thing he thought about, and It's like, it's weird. Because the Falcons, I'm going to view the Falcons as better than the Panthers this upcoming week. I'm going to take that matchup more seriously. Feels like they've been consistently more competitive. And it does feel like Arthur Smith is just a little bit more dynamic Sunday guy than Matt Rule. As Matt Rule go back and take over Nebraska and have them competitive or something, it won't shock me, right? Arthur Smith, to me, feels like he kind of got something. I don't know if he's quite like the next, Brian Daboll, but it feels like he's kind of knows what he's doing. Like, I'm not going to look at this just some like lock, close your eyes, cruise to a victory. Like, they got to play probably better than they did today.
Yeah. And also I agree. And also if you don't have Bosa, Mariota Mariota can move, right?
Mario can move.
So he had 7 carries for 61 yards against the Bucs today.
But then it leads into that Chiefs game that is at home. Like, it's hard, right, to not think ahead of yourself because you're like 4-2, and then you get the Kansas City game, whatever. And then I have just kind of been living week to week. I'm not a huge 3-week ahead schedule guy. I didn't realize the Chiefs are playing the Bills. So you are getting the Chiefs off peak for Tampa Monday night, even if it is somewhat of a weird letdown, because, I hate to say it, Raider fans, a little bit of a trap game for them. Brady, Raiders, Monday night, and then you get the Bills, which is kind of, I would imagine, one of the top matchups of the year on paper, right?
Their game in the playoffs last year was, if I don't know what the SP category for game of the year was, but it was probably in there.
But if I'm just telling you preseason, like September 1st, we just look at the entire schedule, every team, 17 games. if we just rank the top 5 games of the year on paper, Bills at Chiefs, I mean, wouldn't that be near the top, if not
probably
one?
be number one given the playoff game they played last year. Yeah.
So that is going to be a massive game. I would say the Bills watched a decent amount of that one. I'd say they got their swag back. How about our boy first career touchdown? You see that? Khalil Shakir?
I didn't see it. No.
He had kind of like a little flag route. The DB was below him, caught it, bounced off him, walked in the end zone. They were killing him so bad at the time that it wasn't like he went nuts in the end zone. Kind of acted like he'd been there before. Like, yeah, no big deal. I mean, that made him up like 31-3. But so I guess my point is that Chiefs game's huge. Like that's a top 3 game on the Niners schedule, right? Out September 1st when we're looking at it. You could argue the Rams games are always massive, but Niners playing the Chiefs, so could that be their number 1 game of the year at home? I mean, definitely if you're a season ticket holder, how is that not the number 1 game you want to go see?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, the Chargers game is also a massive game, right? It's different. I mean, you played.
Is it though?
Yeah, Justin Herbert's a big fucking deal. Like,
I don't think they right now, given what they are. I agree. I mean, for me and you, but overall, like the Chargers are kind of a clown show.
I think it's I think you have to score to beat them, and the Niners.
I'm not saying it's not a hard game or whatever. My point is just in terms of like, I think the Chiefs are in a different universe of the rankings. If I'm a season ticket holder, like going to a game or watching a game, if you just had to like rank,
I'm not comparing him to the Chiefs. I'm just saying I think that's a match. Like that would be if I was a season ticket holder when I got the schedule, I would circle that game. Like I'm not giving those tickets away because I think Herbert's a major star.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if he's a little bit more of a star. I do think the franchise, and no fault of his own, brings him down his stardom a little bit. Like watching the Bills today, and I just know the Chiefs. Like he's not on those guys' level. Or Lamar's playing tonight because of the franchise he's at. Like this franchise is kind of a joke. I'm not saying it's like his fault or anything, but
yeah, I mean, I think you're a casual fan. The Chargers have just been in a lot. Like they won a lot of games with Phillip. I know their organization's a joke, but they've not been from a wins and loss standpoint in the last 20 years. Like they've had some good football teams. I think he's just so dynamic. I they're a team that everyone thought like you guys got to make the playoffs this year, right? So
they probably won't.
And yeah, they're 3-2, but anyway, sorry, let's talk about injuries still. Moseley, ACL, maybe. I think you saw that thing, and the turf comes up when it comes to Bosa. I think the turf, hard to know. I'm not a turf expert or a doctor, but when you see the foot kind of plant and not give it all, which is what it looked like happened to Moseley, you think about the turf, but.
And walking off on an ACL doesn't mean he doesn't tear his ACL, right? Some guys get carted off. Some guys can walk off. You just never know.
That's true.
He didn't walk off.
His reaction, and again, guys react differently to different, but his reaction, he felt like it was serious.
That would really suck for him. Like that would be.
Yeah, it'd be the Odell Beckham.
Going into a free agency year, having a really good season. To me, if he just played out, continued to what he looks like, what's he getting? Like 3 years, $30 million? He's just a starting corner. He's credible. He can tackle. Like
feels like at least, right?
Yeah, like 25 guaranteed.
Yeah,
20 guaranteed.
I think he was going to get something pretty healthy. Again, like you play into the playoffs, you make some plays. It's
a position that not many people exist.
Pick six, like have a couple of those plays like you made today, a couple more of those.
High level guy.
Richard Sherman repping you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Not taking a percentage, though.
But he does. I mean, Robert Saleh, I remember seeing him last week say this guy that made a play. He's like, how do we find out about him? Oh, Richard had played with him in Tampa Bay. He called me when he got cut from the Tampa Bay Bucks, so we picked him up. It's like if you are Richard, just pick up the phone and call about 7 different coaches.
The Jets might have paid him.
I think they might, right? That would really suck.
To the sauce.
The Packer, like he would have options.
Yeah,
he would have options for sure.
Yeah,
that would be devastating. But I mean, ultimately, guy, their season, it feels like, last year they were 3-5, right? Now they're 3-2. They'd have a chance to get to 4-2, and it just feels a lot different trajectory than last year. That would be, you lose your starting corner to an ACL. You've lost Elijah Mitchell to an MCL, which is going to cost him minimum half the season. Ty Davis-Price is missing months. Trent Williams is missing probably at minimum 4 games. I saw people posting pictures of him working out. Bosa, keep your fucking fingers crossed. Jimmie Ward, I mean, I would say at best he's missing, probably back for the Chiefs game after you give it like a week off to heal and then you cast it up. I mean, the injuries are mounting fast and furious. Somehow Kittle's already missed a couple games. You forget about because he's back now. I mean, holy shit. I mean, how about when Debo got hit in the arm on the one player? Like, oh my God, tell me he didn't just break his forearm. The collisions they get in is part of having violent players, but holy shit, guy, do they drop like flies on a weekly basis. Somebody in the chat noting that the Atlanta game is also on turf. So I think even best case scenario, if there's not a severe injury for Bosa, I think we might be able to rule him out for next week against Atlanta. Feels like they would not put him back on that field. I don't know, but they've been careful with him before, right, on an artificial field. Again, we might be jumping the gun on that, but that would be just my feeling today, Sunday night. So Falcons turf, Chiefs at home, Rams turf, Chargers on the road, Cardinals, Mexico's grass, but I don't know if it's great grass. Saints at home, Dolphins at home, Bucks at home, at Seattle. Seattle turf?
Seattle's turf.
Seattle's turf. Raiders? Mark rolls at the grass, doesn't he?
They get grass for that one, yep. That's good. See, I'm not a cheap owner, John.
So this is their last turf game of the year.
No, they go to the Rams.
And the Rams. So they got 2 more turf games. Feels like the Rams got good turf because no one ever complained about it. It doesn't feel like people complain about that.
It's a good point. Yeah, the Chargers have good turf, you mean? Dean was like, we're putting in turf. Okay, fine. We're putting in turf. Jason Verrett, I guess, will be maybe some people are suggesting some part of the solution. We'll see. I mean, Diamador Lenore, I think, is probably going to have to be more of the solution.
Ambry Thomas still alive, or did he just quit?
I did see him late in the game. So maybe he has to be part of the solution. I mean, Charvarius Ward, this is where upgrading, not coming into the year with Emmanuel Moseley as your best corner, does pay off a little bit. As much as it sucks to lose him, and it sucks to lose him, you have a guy that is looking like a number 1 corner again today against good receivers. I mean, the Panthers have, their quarterback's not very good. They do have very good receivers. And Charvarius made multiple plays in the game. So to me, that softens the blow a little bit. The one you'd have to put Bosa at the top of the list just because he is maybe the best. He's a top, I would say, would you say what would be inarguable that everyone would agree? Top 3 defensive player?
Yeah.
Donald, Bosa, Parsons. No one would argue with that, right? If you said like he's the best player, there'd be arguments. If you said he's top 2, people would argue. If you said top 3, maybe TJ Watt would get some argument.
I saw TJ Watt, like their record with that when TJ Watt's been hurt in his career is now up to 0-9. They've never won a game when TJ Watt is not. I think TJ Watt's like borderline his brother, like in his peak the last couple of years.
He's like the opposite of the Packers post
Devontae, yeah.
Or injured Devontae. They've never won a game without TJ Watt?
Nope. 0-8 or maybe today took him to 0-9. So, yeah, I think Bosa's easily.
Myles Garrett.
Are we talking pre or post the Ferrari flip?
We're talking at his Porsche at his best.
When I saw the Porsche, like, Miles, do you fit in that thing? Like, do you fit in that thing? Because it can't be comfortable for you at your size. Can it? Can't be. No chance.
All those sports cars are so low. Like, it's uncomfortable for you or me to get in and out.
I know. No chance. Unless they specifically made it for them, which they might have.
But they're low. Like, you are, it's so low.
I know. It's like, bro, just fucking drive a F-150, man. Yeah, I mean, he's like, here's the thing. The Niners can't just handle game in, game out without Trent and Bosa. You can't just not have your 2 best players. You can't. Now, they're not your quarterback, right? So ultimately, that's the most important position. And we'll get into Jimmie here in a second. Like, if you just get functional quarterback play, like, ultimately, the Panthers have some flaws. But if I just threw Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert on the team, they would be 3-2, right? They just wouldn't suck. They'd be fine. So your quarterback play is more important than any other play, like in a vacuum. But just week in, week out, you can't just overcome. There was a play today when Jalen Moore got smoked. It's like he's a 3rd-string left tackle. And when the game ended, and you're just like, well, he only gave up one true sack, or like only really like you're like I can probably live with that. But week in, week out, how often can you just roll with the third string left tackle? And then what happens when Bosa's out? Well, you're already missing Kinlaw and Armstead, who aren't like, hey, Charles Davis, do you not get the inactives? Like Kinlaw is not dressed out and Armstead's not dressed out. So then there's just a trickle down.
Armstead was tweeting.
Yeah, I mean, think about the trickle down effect. Let's just say next week. Let's just assume the best. Bosa's just going to need a week, maybe two. Just hopefully it's just tight. They're going to be precautionary. Well, none of those guys are going to go on IR. Well, I guess Kinlaw could at any moment. But which, if you told me next, like on Monday, Kinlaw's out for the season, there's like, yeah, I mean, but let's just hypothetically say they're going to push this out. Hopefully they can get them right. Those three guys are just going to be scratches. So the D-line group is just all of a sudden is Drake Jackson starting, right? You know, all of a sudden these guys, Gibbons, and you just ask for so much more of the group. Right. Where those guys got to just be like, telling their buddies after a win, hey, it's the best job I've ever had. They're paying me $3 million. I play 15 sacks. And 3 of those series, they say just fucking play with your hair on fire and attack. This one is like, hey, the game plan, you got to do this on first down. Like now it's a whole different ball game. Think about Drake Jackson. It's like Drake, you're going to get these series when the flow of the game and maybe
and he's fresh.
Now it's like, hey, can you give us 45 snaps?
I mean, he made a play late the second half of the game today. It was just he just looked faster than everybody.
Which I'm not against, but
no,
like, ideally his rookie year,
depth. It's the beauty of having depth. It's just waves. It's fucking.
I felt during the game that you could tell that they were missing some horses. They're just D-line looked a little, wasn't as fresh, wasn't getting there. Toward the second half, and you're like, I would imagine a lot of these guys going to need a Lombardi study here, which I'm sure will come out on like Monday. Like the amount of snaps some of the guys played relative to the previous snap, like week 1 or 2 when everyone was healthy. You can easily go from 13 snaps to 28 snaps. If you weigh 300 pounds, like that's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah. No, it's a good call. Rome says, Ham, why do teams play starters late with the game in hand? Well, it's not college. Your roster, you only got 46 guys. So, I guess you can sub a guy here or a guy there, but you don't have that many extra guys, right? Especially when teams are out there trying to come back. They're running 4 wides.
But you already had guys hurt. So, like, once Bosa's hurt, like you can't. This isn't like call everyone off the bench in the
Probably
NBA.
More of a Moseley question, but yeah.
But that's you just put in Lenore out there, who's you just be like, well, he's
already out there.
That's what I'm saying. So
Womack's,
they're going 3-4 wide receivers deep. Why is Moseley in the game? Well, I don't know. They're throwing bombs. What should he be doing? Drinking Gatorade on the table? Like he'd probably be like, why would I be out there? I have no issue with going like, why is Moseley like that's a kind of a freak play, man. It is my pushback on some of this shit is like it's football, guys. It's football.
Yeah, to me, it's just you don't have the guys. Like if you had a bigger roster, Moseley shouldn't be out there up 37-15 late in the fourth quarter. He wouldn't be.
You're saying if it was college?
Yeah, I'm just saying if your roster was 60 guys instead of 46, Emmanuel Moseley wouldn't be on the field in that situation, probably.
Yeah, I mean you have 5 corners dressed. Your guys just stay on the field. Like Darrelle Revis, Deion Sanders are in that position.
My point is it's not that much of a choice, really. It's just the nature of the roster size.
Yeah, I think it's a double whammy. Like you say, it's a nature of it, and then back to it's just football. Like you can just get hurt when you play. Like I guess my pushback always is like that could easily happen on the 3rd play of the game if they run a go route, like that individual play.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
I just think some stuff.
But I think back to your point on the D line, it's just the more snaps you play, the more exposed you are. Right. Because it didn't happen on the 3rd. Well, just, the point, it's a dumb conversation, but if you had 60 guys on the team, he's not playing in that spot. He's playing less snaps. And
I think the bigger question is why do the Niners consistently get hurt more than any other team?
James on the chat says because Kyle Shanahan is a Final Destination movie. Yeah.
Hard to argue.
I mean, I will say you look around the whole league and people are hurt everywhere, every week.
The Niners got to be near the league leader.
It feels like in Kyle's tenure, if we added the whole thing up, it's just.
I feel like the Niners could throw their hat in the ring right now.
Yeah. I
mean, they are missing left tackle, multiple running backs. They're missing now a corner, a safety, 3 D linemen.
A starting quarterback. Did you say quarterback?
Starting quarterback, shattered ankle. Kicker. Linebacker who's on IR.
Yep.
Alshire.
Fire.
So when it comes to starters, no.
Josh Norman available?
But this is also, like part of it is like, why do you draft multiple running backs or 3 running backs in 2 years? Why did you draft 2 corners last year? Because you just draft the best players on your board and you just let the cream rise over the time, right? Like it's one guy who has kind of got some love on the internet this year is Aaron Banks, who's clearly pretty good. And it shows you like some guys in football are ready to show up, kick ass. Nick Bosa, for example, are just good immediately. Now, he was the second pick in the draft, but a lot of guys just need a little time. And I heard someone say this. It was Todd McShay talking about he's like, I think some of the Pac-12 guys got a bad rap coming out that COVID year. He's like, I've had a coach tell me that they weren't allowed to let other people spot them. Like the rules out west in 2020 were unlike.
You talking about like in a weight room?
I'm talking the development. I'm talking the play.
Well, you say spot him. You're talking about like on a bench press.
Yeah, and squats and just the rules relative. Like the SEC, they didn't even know COVID was going on once Alabama had their own weight room built at fucking Landon Dickerson's house. And then the year coming into the NFL, they got the OTAs wiped out last year, right? So it was like a carryover effect. It was just training camp. So some guys, like the SEC guys, had been practicing training like nothing stopped.
Yeah.
Where a guy like Lenore's the Oregon guy, right?
Lenore's the Oregon guy.
So, and they're just weren't on the same trajectories as some other schools. Like not every school. Like right now, this year, everyone's doing the same shit all over the country, right? Yeah. So you're just you've had the offseason, the spring ball, where that year, not everyone was equals. And then all of a sudden you don't get spring ball in the pros. And remember, Kyle was like, I didn't think Lenore knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And then now it feels like Kyle loves Lenore. Lenore just beat out Womack out of nowhere, and now Lenore plays a ton.
Even when he gets beat, it feels like he's right there, just got beat in the slot by, a really good receiver. Okay, shit happens.
So I get my point is that some players, a lot of players, the majority of the league, who is not a top 5 pick, they just come on at different rates. Some guys by the middle of their second year, it's like, God, we really got something here. But a year ago, it's easy to be like, oh, Lenore missed pick. Why do they draft all these corners? Or why do they? Now, sometimes you just whiff, right? Clearly, the Trey Sermon thing, running backs, I'd say pop the fastest. It's like you kind of know right away, what's up. And they just we whiffed and you move on. But they'd also be like, well, why we drafted 3 running backs in 2 years and 2 of them we feel really good about. We get rid of the one.